welcome everyone to today's session. The topic today is the silent killer in your future, and Mark is going to be facilitating today's session and telling us more about what this secret silent assassin is. And actually, Mark had like a stronger name for it, and it was the cancer killing your future. And I was like, wow. So, first of all, Mark, tell us about the title of your topic today. Why is it the cancer? And also, I see you have a lion on your shirt and in your backdrop. Is there a story behind that?
There is a story. I've always loved lions. They are known as the kings of the beast. And so they're not kings, though, because individually, an individual lion could not survive. But together, they dominate everything. And they're often outnumbered by hyenas, and hyenas will attack one lion, but they will not attack multiple lions. And so that's been my theory. My theme is lions. We are becoming kings and queens of whatever we do. So that's it. I wrote a book called Eliminating Excuses, and I'm going to share my screen. Is it okay? Is it time to share my screen so far?
Yes, please go ahead.
And so the actual title is Excuses, the Cancer Killing Your Future. And because cancer doesn't destroy your life overnight, it's in most cases, and admittedly, there are people who get a form of cancer that's really aggressive, but for the most part, cancer spreads very slowly, very quietly, and once it's detected, then treatment starts. Excuses are the same way. I believe that wherever you have limits in your life, it's caused by an excuse. It's not caused because you don't know what to do, not because you can't do it. It's because you're uncomfortable doing it, and so you make an excuse for why not. And in that way, excuses are slowly killing your future, at least your potential in the future. So one of the things that I talk about a lot, I'll explain to you, is called getting started from where you are and doing it without shame. That's one of my key components. This is one of the first LinkedIn banners. I had AI make up for me, but it looks like I'm choking the dog. My skin looks like a reptile, so I knew I had to do better. But the key component is I got started. I didn't wait for perfection. And so one of the stories that came about is the story of somebody called me annoying. And I asked people questions. Hey, do you have anything you're trying to do special over summer? And this lady said to me, not me, Mark. I'm not the one. People like you annoy me. Those were her exact words. And I remember thinking to myself, is she talking about Black people, men, or senior citizens? Because I'm all three of those. But then I realized something. And one of the reasons we generate excuses, especially in the beginning of our businesses, is because we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want somebody to think of us as being annoying. So when she did that, I was free. I had that first person who attacked me, and now I felt good. I can move forward in life the way I want to go. And I'm going to prove to you or share that a lot of reasons why we don't do things is because of fear of what other people think about us. So keep that in mind as we move forward. My biggest thing is get started from where you are and do it without shame. Because if you never get started, you never can go anywhere. So if there's one thing that I want you to get from this whole presentation, it is get started from where you are and do it without shame. Shame will keep you stuck where you are. And then 10 years later and 20 years later, you'll be ashamed of where you are anyway. So while you're young and strong, you might as well get it over with and go do what you want to do. Ask that person out if you're single. Ask for the money if you're in business. Ask for what you want, because you'll rarely ever get it if you don't ask for it. Lewis, I see a question up already.
Yeah, it's not so much a question. I think that's great. And one of the things I always say in my business is get started and do it, because actually you're in a position to gather data. You can get information. Whether it doesn't have to be perfect, you can get information to improve.
Well, Lewis, you're stealing my future slide, but
Sorry about
okay.
that. I'll take it back.
All right. And so the second thing that I really want you to do, get from this is be who you really are, not necessarily who's popular. I'm in the States, and we have a president who is the most polarizing person I've ever known in my life, legitimately. And yet he's been elected president twice. He's been a best-selling author. He's been a TV show host for a very popular TV show. I'm not endorsing him. I'm not against him. I'm just simply saying, be who you are. You sleep much better at night. And the other reason is the people you were meant to serve and help, those people will appreciate you if you're fully who you are. So I call myself, as you know, your personal drill sergeant. And Safa asked me for high def pictures, and I don't have any high def pictures. So these pictures make up my LinkedIn and Facebook banners, but this is who I am. I am a personal drill sergeant, but I don't give you orders. I simply get my clients to obey their own orders. And I have that unique combination of compassion, which is why I'm holding a Shih Tzu. I love that dog. And why I have stock sunglasses and a camouflage outfit, and I call myself a personal drill sergeant, because sometimes we all need someone who looks us in the eye and says, no excuses. Do the F, it rhymes with duck, and it ends in ing work. Do the work you know you're supposed to do. And I provide both those services. So my whole mission is to help people turn their excuses into bold execution. The last thing about me is I'm 65, going on 23. Most of what I've learned and what I teach now is based on going through adulthood very poorly the first time. I had a lot of excuses that I lived with. I look back, I had a lot of fun, but I did not build anything significant. So now, starting life over at 23, I started it with the writing of my book that I'll talk about a little bit later. Actually, now I have the big poster behind me so I can point to it. So that's exciting. But ultimately, everything I teach is from my experience and now what I'm doing differently to start all over again. So I have seen a lot of stuff in life. I've experienced a lot of things with people. I've had a lot of success, but I've also given most of it back. So now I'm 23 years old in spirit. However, I will say this. The one part of my life I did take care of was my body. And I don't care who you are listening to me right now. I don't care how old you are. You have to have a plan for old age, good health. There's so many things that go wrong with the body on its own. Your diet, your exercise routine, your stress, your getting rest has to be a part of your plan. The last 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, I went for runs, and both days I ran multiple miles in under 10 minutes a mile. And I say that because I don't think half, maybe even 3/4 of the people of any age can run a mile in less than 10 minutes, let alone 3 or 4 miles. So I'm proud of that. It allows me to start all over again. Take care of your bodies is all I'm saying. You are nothing without your body. So in November of 2023, I was formally diagnosed with prostate cancer. And if there's one word you never want to hear in your doctor's office, it is the word cancer. But I was otherwise healthy. I caught it early. But I learned a lot about cancer. Cancer grows inside your body very slowly, in most cases, very steadily. And that's why it's so dangerous. You often don't feel symptoms until it's really grown. It spreads throughout your life, and it steals your life one day at a time. So whatever men, if you're over 50, please get your prostate examined. Ladies, I don't know what the specific recommendations are, but don't ignore pains in your body. They usually mean something. Get those things checked out. Different feelings. It's better to be safe than it is to be sorry. So after my journey through cancer and the treatment, which is in many cases worse than having cancer, except that without the treatment, you die. So I realized that excuses are just like cancer. They slowly spread throughout our lives. They slowly kill the future you're trying to create. And every day that goes by that's filled with excuses is a day you didn't progress and move your life forward. And that's why I believe cancer is your most expensive habit. And excuses are your most expensive habit. And excuses do two things. They justify the things you do that you know you shouldn't do. Anybody got an amen on that? Have you ever done something and all while you were doing it, you knew this is going to cost me time, it's going to cost me money, it's going to cost me health, it's going to cost me a relationship, but you do it anyway? If that's you, Safai, feel free to read any comments or I do's or but I think that everybody justifies what they do that they shouldn't do through an excuse.
Well, ask
It's
them
not,
the question directly.
I did. I did ask the question,
What
and
are your
so
excuses, you guys?
we'll save that for the breakout room.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
So, but the second thing excuses do is they keep us from growing the business. They keep us from doing what will grow our business. They keep us from having conversations. They keep us from improving our relationships. Excuses are the most expensive habit because they let you do stuff you shouldn't do and they stop you from doing things that you should do. And that's how people end up stuck and in a life that they don't want to live. So I've done a lot of wordsmithing on the term excuse. And the dictionary, every dictionary, I can't say in every language because I only speak English, but I'm sure it's true. Every definition of excuse uses terms like justify, defend, explain, and remove blame. Whenever you make an excuse, you're justifying something, you're defending something, you're explaining something, and you're trying to remove blame from you for why you did what you did or didn't do what you did. But I want you to notice what's missing. There has never been an excuse that has helped us solve a problem. There's never been an excuse that has improved the situation. And there's never been an excuse that helped us to achieve our goal. Excuses are the cancer that's killing the results you want in your life. And in that way, it's killing your future. The job of an excuse is not to move you forward. It is to make you feel better while you're standing still. And I think if you understand that and you hear yourself making excuses, I think that's when you start to change. There's going to come a time in the next 36 to 48 hours when you're going to hear yourself, and I want you to hear yourself coming up with a reason or justification or an excuse for why you're not doing something, why you're not making calls, why you're not exercising, why you're going to eat that bad plate of food that's slowly destroying your future also. I want you to hear my voice asking you, what excuse is this? Why are you making this excuse? How is this helping you and protecting you and excusing what you're doing? That's what I want this presentation to do for you. So every excuse that you make, even those little cute ones, has a cost. I live in America, and I'm telling you, there are now organizations that defend people for being overweight and the corresponding health problems. And so excuses cost you health, excuses cost you money, excuses have contributed to people's divorces, career stagnation, it weakens your leadership. And when you have a bunch of excuses for why your life is the way it is, whether you know it or not, you're passing that on to the people that you parent. You're passing it on to the people who parent. I really want you to understand that your excuses become your children's way of life. If you're young enough to have children, if you're old enough and you're having grandchildren, you've already passed them on to your children, and your children likely passing it on to their parents, to their children. So I said a lot. I want to give you guys a chance to talk about what you've heard me say, and I want you to talk about in your breakout rooms what excuse has cost you the most money? What excuse has cost you the most love? What excuse has cost you the most health? Discuss that amongst yourselves and come back in about 8 to 10 minutes so far. Is that cool?
Okay. All right. So we'll have 10 minutes and then we'll be back. Let's go.
All right. Does anybody want to share something? We've had one or two people. If you want to share something that you learned while you were in the breakout room or that you shared, anybody want to share something real quick?
Mark, was it you when Scott spoke and he says, no, that's not an excuse. That is that's a fact. In
Correct.
terms of what's the difference? Because I think that was a very good answer. What's the difference between thing be a reality, a fact, and when is it excuse? How do you distinguish?
So we had a person in one of the rooms who says he can't do all the stuff he used to do because he has a wife that he's a caretaker for. And it's his priority. His wife is his priority. That is not an excuse. That is, we can call it a reason, we can call it life, we call it whatever we want. An excuse is what you say to yourself about something that you stop yourself from doing for no other reason but because you're really uncomfortable for it. I think that, see if I can go backwards. I think that some of the slides that I put up earlier about, you know, the definition of an excuse is a justify or a reason of something that you can do, you're fully capable of doing, you have the time to do, but you choose not to do it because you're uncomfortable. That is what an excuse is. And so hopefully we gave him grace to understand that he's doing the best he can. Does that make sense to everybody? Scott, you have your hand up, or is that a thumbs up? I can't tell.
It's
That's your
both.
hand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that many of you can relate to being a high performer when that has to be slowed down for something out of your control. That high performer part of your brain wants to keep going. And you use the 23-year-old versus the 60-year-old, and I'm 60 as of last year, and I'm slowing down in a lot of different ways. And it feels excuse-y to say you need to or you could and you're not, even though the circumstances of my world have changed so dramatically. So I appreciated the grace. I'm not sure the excusey part won't still come up, but I don't really consider it an excuse per se because I'm not accomplishing something. But when you're putting yourself to sleep at night, you're like, man, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. It still weighs on you. And so navigating that is sometimes difficult.
So Scott, you just kind of made an excuse for why you make excuses that aren't really excuses. Congratulations. Is it Raina? I see you have your hand up.
It's
Rana.
Rana. Yeah, it's Rana. If I
Yes.
may, I would like, I understand excuses and I have many of those, but I do think there's another category that qualifies as something else, I think, rather than an excuse. There are some kind of like mental capacity limitations, or there are some types of personal circumstances that I wouldn't say are excuses that may cause someone to just be, incapable to have the mental capacity to do everything that they would like to do. If those certain circumstances didn't really happen to them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, there are certainly excuses of time or tired or, things like that. But I think there is a certain different category that might qualify as something else other than an excuse.
And we all
I don't
agree.
know.
That's the case of Scott's case, and we do definitely agree with you that certain circumstances do create reasons that we can't do something we want to do. There's no question. We agree. Lewis, and then we'll move on.
So basically you're saying it's a disingenuous choice. It's not something that's imposed on you. Is that right?
Yes, I'm saying excuses come from inside of you, not from outside of you.
Yeah.
They literally, if you only have, so it's really interesting because everybody, you can find a story of someone who overcame just about every impossible situation. And if we compare ourselves to those people, then we're always going to feel like we're lacking and we're less. There are people, you look at people, there's the Paralympics, right? Those people have every built-in reason to not become athletes, but they still choose to do it. So some of it, in some cases, is a choice, but there are also physical limitations of time, in some cases of talent, in some cases of law. Sometimes the law, it stops us from doing things. And then there's this thing called physics that keeps us all from flying. That's not an excuse. Those things are not excuses. Those things are real world reasons why we can't do everything we want to do. Maybe this will help explain it a little bit further. Generally speaking, the smarter you are, the better excuses you can come up with. And so I want to explain how one of the ways you can tell the difference between an excuse and a reason. Let's call a reason is something that's literally stopping you. An excuse is you stopping yourself. How's that for a definition? Sometimes life stops us, but most of the time we stop ourselves. Those are the excuses I'm talking about right now. Some people, Sophia, is that your hand up or is that a?
Yeah, that's me. Um, yeah, I have a question for you. I
Okay.
think it relates to Rana's point, is that sometimes we cannot name the excuse. Like w something is blocking us. Something like you feel like you don't even understand why, because you feel you have the skills, the mindset, the environment, but you feel something like it's something stronger, bigger than you that's stopping you, and you can't really point a finger on it.
So can I tell you a story? And maybe some of this, maybe this answers this question. So I wrote most of my book going through January, and after Thanksgiving in the States, which is the beginning of December, my lady, whom I love, and we broke up. And while I was writing and finishing up the book, that took away the pain of the breakup and it gave me something to focus on. But when the book was finished and I wanted to go back and proofread it, all of a sudden, every morning I would come to my computer and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus. And I actually realized that I was mourning my lost relationship. And it actually put a chapter in my book called Not Everything That Stops You Is an Excuse. So there is a chapter in my book about that, but I was mourning my relationship. Sometimes it's death, sometimes it's health. There are all kinds of reasons that aren't excuses that stop us from doing things. If it hands up or a nod of head, does that make sense? Does that kind of help? I go through it too. I have emotions. I'm a caring person. And if I lost someone like I lost her, I was in mourning, so I couldn't perform the way I wanted to. Nod your heads. Does that make sense? All right. Why do smart people make excuses? Our excuses are a protection mechanism that our subconscious minds create to protect us from something that we don't want to have happen. And I have a saying that almost every decision we make is either based on love or it's based on fear. And so when we make an excuse, what we're doing is we're protecting ourselves from failure. We protect ourselves from rejection, embarrassment, discomfort, uncertainty. And one of the bigger ones that we don't realize is loss of status. We are wired based on our upbringing, based on the life that we've lived, that we would rather fail through inaction than do something public and fail at it. I don't know if that makes sense or not. We'd rather not ask than ask and get rejected. In essence, giving us no chance at getting what we want, as opposed to a 50-50 chance if we actually go out and ask for it. Sorry. And the more we ask for it, the more likelihood we'll get what we want. This is what excuses are. And that's why it's different, Scott, than what you were going through. You didn't not act because your failure, rejection, you love somebody else and put them as a priority. So that's one way to see that you're not practicing an excuse. Embarrassment. I mean, who wants to be embarrassed? Nobody. So we will avoid embarrassment. We won't speak up. We won't ask the questions. We won't ask the person that we love out or to marry because we don't be embarrassed if they say no. We want to avoid discomfort, uncertainty, and one of the big ones is loss of status. If you think about it, sometimes we have a really small park in New York City called Bronx Park. And some people would rather be the king of Bronx Park, that little small tiny plot of land, than be successful in the entire city. Every time you create an excuse, you're protecting yourself from one of these 6 things. And I would challenge you, the next time you're making a decision, ask yourself, am I making a decision to go after what I want, or am I trying to protect what I have? Ask yourself a question. Am I pursuing what I want? Or am I kind of like hanging on in desperation to what I have? And this applies to relationships, it applies to money, it applies to title, status, friendships. And it really happens a lot in romantic relationships. There comes a point in a relationship where we stop attracting our mate to us and we start trying to hold on to them. And when you're trying to hold on to someone, the more they seem to want to run away. So if you're in a relationship, think about that. How can I re-attract my partner? Because I attracted them once, so why can't I attract them again? As opposed to trying to hang on by the thread to the string. I hope that makes sense, because I think understanding that when you don't do something for protection, that's when it's an excuse. When you don't do something because of physical constraints, that's different. When we start creating excuses, we create something called what I call the war of selves. And Johanna, I'll get to you after I explain this slide. The war of selves is when a part of us looks at the world and sees possibility, whether it's love, income, better health. We see it and we want it. But there's that part of us inside, the fearful part, that says, oh no, we're not the kind of person who can do that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the talent. It's not the right time. That's when the excuses get generated. And this creates a very miserable state. I call it the war of selves. When we're at war with ourselves, I want to do this. Oh, but I can't do that. So we do it halfway. We do it once or twice, and then we stop, and then we give up. So the next time you hear that dialogue in your head about what you should do, or why you shouldn't do something, that's the war of selves. I want you to identify it, and I want you to make a decision based on what you want, not based on what you're afraid to have happen. Joanna, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to add something on the slide before that kind of came up in the initial conversation we've had. And I wrote it very quickly in the chat. I said I would add personal freedom of movement. Often when I make excuses, and I guess maybe it's external versus internal, it's because I don't want to discuss, or I don't want to go through the process with someone else to explain, not because there is probably like fear of judgment, embarrassment is part of that, but it's because I don't want interruption of my process. I want the personal freedom to think it through and live it through my own way. Either if I procrastinate, or I need more time, or I do different actions. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I would like to add to it, like sometimes we can make a choice to stay where we are because that's really what we want. That's not an excuse. A decision to stay somewhere or to do or not do something because we feel it's what we want, truly want, that's not an excuse. The excuse
right, but it is perceived as an excuse, at least by external people.
Well, that's going to be their problem then, as far as I'm concerned, not yours. The one thing I would say is excuses stop you from doing something you otherwise want to do. If you just don't want to do it, then it's not an excuse. That's your choice. Does that make sense? Because I think that's a really good point you bring up. If I don't want to do something for whatever reason, that's my choice. If I want to do it, but I don't do it because I make excuses, that's what an excuse is. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
So I want to talk to you about the three. Yes.
I just ask a question about your point. If I don't want to do it, but your subconscious mind might well be driving you into that because of fear. You need to be extremely self-aware to take a conscious decision in that case. And I agree with you in that sense. But many times I see when I coach people saying, I don't want to do it. And it comes in many cases out of fear.
Then it's an excuse, but I just want to give people grace not everybody wants to be a millionaire. Not everybody wants
Yes,
to be
yes, I
married.
agree. Mhm.
Not everybody wants to have children. That those are, if you don't want something, it's not an excuse. But you can't say, I don't want it, but then spend your time wishing you had it. That's when it becomes an excuse,
Exactly.
right? So I can't say I want to be married, but I don't, but then I constantly wish that I had someone to spend time with. So I hope that makes sense. I want to explain the three versions of you that have and will exist in your lifetime. And the interesting thing is, except for version 1, you may be a version 2 in one part of your life and a version 3 in the other part of your life. And that's why it becomes so incredibly confusing sometimes. But version 1.0 is when you were born. And you, from the time you were born up until version 2, you were fearless. You were absolutely fearless. You cannot stop a 6-month-old or a one-year-old from going after everything they want in their lives. You cannot stop them. That's what parents are for. I am a reader of the Bible, and in the Bible it says Adam and Eve were created. They were created as adults, because if they were created as children, they would have been eaten by the birds of the air or the animals of the field. So everybody else who was born fearless. Everything we wanted as a baby, we went after. Version 2.0 came about because our parents protected us from physical harm, to keep us from falling and bumping our big heads on everything and falling downstairs and putting our fingers inside of electrical cords. But as we grew up, most of us do not live in fear of physical harm anymore. But we've learned to protect ourselves, so we turn to fearing emotional harm. And so most of us, unless we're driving or some unique situations, we don't think we're going to die today. Am I right? Anybody think they're going to die today? No, we don't live in physical harm. So we have turned to the fears I talked about in the previous slide. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure. And as parents, one of the best things we can do for our children is teach them not to fear these things, because it takes away so many of our excuses. But ultimately, in version 2.0, most people are stuck because they're afraid of those things on the previous slide. So my goal as a personal drill sergeant is to help my clients become version 3.0, the self that no longer fears emotional harm, rejection, loss of status. Because ultimately speaking, if we don't go after the things we want, we are rejecting ourselves instead of being rejected by others. We are depriving ourselves of the love we want, the health we want, the money we want. We're doing it to ourselves instead of letting other people do it to us. So I think the question always comes down, and in discussions with my clients, is, are you going to reject yourself? Or are you going to put yourself at risk of being rejected by others? Because if you reject yourself, you have no chance of being successful. If you put yourself out there, there's a great chance you'll find someone who'll say yes and help you create the life that you truly want to live. So this slide, and what I want you to understand, is that the war of selves is between version 2.0 of you and version 3.0 of you. And the more you become version 3.0, the more you win that war and do the things that presently scare you. And the more often you give in, it becomes your way of life, and you become stuck at where you are. And so I want you to generate results, not excuses. So we're going to do a second breakout room. And what you're going to ask yourself is, where are you living version 2.0 versus where you're living version 3.0? And I want you to identify version 2.0 behaviors and excuses that keep you from creating and becoming the person you're fully capable of becoming. Does that make sense to everybody? I'll take that as a yes. Safa?
Okay, let's go. 10 minutes. All right. Welcome back.
All right. So any key insights or any key learnings that occurred in the breakout room?
I just want to mention something that came up in our group, which was quite interesting. And where do we feel more exposed in terms of being either 2.0 or 3.0 in our personal life or in our professional lives? That was interesting discussion, because I mean I've worked with a lot of people who have different personalities, whether if they are in their personal life or in their professional life, and I was arguing that we are more rational in our professional life than in our personal life. So probably we will feel more exposed we will be more in 2.0 in our personal lives. But then we started discussing that in reality, we need to be self-conscious, congruent in both, in that sense. And I guess this all depends on self-consciousness.
I think we all have 5 areas of our lives. We have a health, we have a money, we have a career, professional, we have relationships, and we have a spiritual life. And I've never met anyone who was perfect in all 5 ways.
Mm-hmm.
I have met people who suck in all 5 ways, I will say that, but I've never met anyone who was perfect in all 5 ways. And I think we all have our strengths. You know, powerful men, for example, seem to have very good at what they're powerful at in business, politics, but let the right woman come along and they just fall apart and they collapse everything else. The key component to me of life is you can excel in something, but don't let your weakness tear all of that down. I think that's the key way that I would say it, put it, and describe it. I think the other thing I would say is, if the worst thing that you create in a part of your life is comfort as opposed to greatness, I think that's okay. I think being comfortable, I think if you want to be great as a family man or family woman, a parent, a spouse, a husband, a wife, and that's your chosen area, as long as it's your choice, I think that's great. If you want to make millions of dollars and be single your whole life, I think that's great also. I don't want anyone to think that I believe that all of us should be great in all 5 areas. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to separate as best I can what is an excuse for why we're not fully living versus a choice of, this is my area that I want to excel in. I just want to be the best mom I can possibly be. And I don't want to teach my children the limitations my parents passed on to me. That would be ideal if someone said that, if that's truly how they feel. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
It does. Great.
Safar, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask whether laziness and the I can't be bothered attitude is a valid excuse.
I think it's the same question we've been asking, which is, when can I settle and when should I be going for everything? And I'm just going to stick with the answer I just gave. Very few people can be great at everything. I think we have to pick where we want to be great at. I think that the key component of it all is, if you're answering yourself the question, do I really want this? Yes or no? And am I willing to pay the price to get it? Or am I unwilling because of fear, rejection, setbacks, or I'm fear I'm going to lose something? I would say that the best way to answer the question about your motive is, am I acting out of love for what I truly want, or fear for what I really don't want? If the answer is love, you're heading in the right direction. If the answer is fear, I'm scared, I don't want this to happen, I want that to happen, then I would say that's when the excuses get generated. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, I assume that means yes. Any other questions before I conclude?
So did you guys know your excuses prior to today's session, or because yeah, it's very difficult to be honest with oneself. We find excuses for our excuses, right? So it's a challenging exercise.
So I did a post on Facebook and LinkedIn yesterday saying, if we were as critical of ourselves as we are of others, we would all be more successful. If we literally critiqued ourselves and our work the way we often critique other people's work, at least that's true of me, we would be so much better at what we do. Does that make sense to what I just said? Does that make sense to you guys? Thumbs up.
It does, but doesn't it become negative self-talk?
Well, critiquing is not negative self-talk if you do it to be constructive, to learn how to do better next time. Right? And every time when I'm done with this presentation, I'm going to ask the file and I'm going to evaluate my performance. Where I messed up at, that's not negative self-talk if I'm trying to figure out how to do better for the next presentation. Agreed? If I do a sales presentation and I don't get the result I want, trying to see how I could have done better, that's not negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is, oh, what an idiot. I'm never going to do that again. To me, that's negative self-talk. Constructive self-talk is learning from what you did and trying to do better. So I don't remember who it was, but somebody said they were in their first marriage, they got divorced, but in their second marriage, they got so much better because they realized what they had done wrong the first time. When you decide you're never going to marry again, that's negative self-talk if you really want to be married. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
So in other words, just being your own coach, your own personal coach, basically.
I would say being honest with yourself more than being your own coach. Being honest with yourself. Do I want to make more money? Do I want to make more sales? If the answer is yes, then everything after that becomes an excuse. Everything that you don't do to create those things becomes your excuse. Do I want to be married and be in a great relationship? If the answer is yes, but you're hesitant to do, that becomes the start of an excuse. Do I want a better body? Do I need to be more healthy? Should I be exercising and eating better? If your answer is yes, everything that stops you from doing that becomes your excuse. Unless you just can't afford to do better or there's no available food around. I hope that makes sense. When you want something out of love, but you're not going after it, it's the excuses that stop you. When you know there's something you shouldn't be doing because it's costing you, but you do it anyway, that's your excuses giving you a justification for doing it. I just want to do a quick slide. When I generally work with people, they really come to me because they don't know what to do. Everybody, every single one of you, if you want to improve your life, you know something you can do to make your life better right now. They know what to do. They know why they should do it. And they know they will improve their life if they do it, but they're still not doing it. That's the type of person I generally help. And I help them. I help the people I serve to identify. So we're talking about excuses. What are my most common excuses? That was the purpose of the first breakout room. What are my excuses? Understand, what is these excuses costing me? That was part of the second breakout room, so that we can then eliminate the excuses that are holding you back. And my goal is to get everyone I work with, and even to get all of you, to boldly, consistently, and effectively execute the stuff you know you should be doing, and just get started from where you are and do it without shame. So I have this thing called success's worst kept and most avoided secret. There's not a single one of you who truly wants to get better at something who doesn't already know these 4 steps. Do what you already know needs to be done. I am amazed at how many men cannot, just for no reason and without wanting sex, look at their female partner and say, baby, I love you, in a non-sexual context. I am amazed how many men feel that they should know I love them. And yet you can say it over and over again and they won't do it. Number 2, learn from whatever happens. When you do something, learn from it. Learn from it. If it goes poorly, if it's the worst thing that ever happened, learn from it. If it's the best thing that ever happened, learn from it. Step 3, do better next time. So you did something, you learned something, and you did it better. Step 4, repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 until you get your desired results. Do you know why everybody who's healthy walks? Do you know why everybody learns how to walk? Because they go through this process. Do you know why most people learn to speak the language of their native land? They go through this process. Everything you truly want in life, you do this process until excuses come in and tell you things that stop you along the way. I hope that makes sense to you. Simple success secret ever written, ever known to the history of mankind is do what you know, see what happens, do better next time, keep doing it until you get what you want. You want a formula for success? That's it right there. And I will say this to you. If everybody did it, most of us we wouldn't have jobs because people would just go do it and we wouldn't worry about it. This is the secret of success. Everybody wants to know what it is. So what would happen if you applied these 4 steps to your body, to your saving money, to your making those phone calls or posting or whatever marketing you do? I bet every one of you, there's a hard conversation you need to have with someone, whether it's your children, whether it's your spouse, a conversation that would make your relationship better, make their life better, maybe even make your life better, and relationships. So I want to throw it open for a few minutes, real quick. Talk about something that would happen in your life if you actually applied the 4 steps of the previous slide to one of these areas of your life. No one? Okay. Am I leaving you speechless, or is it just too hard of a
You guys
question?
are very shy today. What's going on?
I thought we were going in breakout room, sorry.
Yeah, I thought so too.
No, we don't have time for another breakout room. I got 10 minutes left, so I just want to, I just get anyone want to comment on the question I just asked? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything would be better. You would accomplish more, you would feel better physically, you would achieve maybe your financial goals and personal relationships would improve if you apply all those things that were on the previous slide.
Right. So why don't we do it?
Well,
Remember, I see you have your hand up.
I do it in rations.
We all do it where we're successful. That's the interesting thing. We
Mhm.
all do it where we're successful. We don't do it where we're not successful. If you can take one thing away, if you look at a part of your life, you say, how come I'm not more successful? I guarantee you that this slide is that these 4 steps are missing from that part of your life. All right, Paula, I see, Paula, us being dark complected people, when we use the dark hand, it doesn't always show up as well as it should, just so you know. I stopped using the dark hand for that reason. Do you have a question or?
I just had a comment. I'm just going to use myself as when you talk about, I love this whole presentation. I love the work you do. Everything here is so accurate. And this self-imposed limitation. I was at the gym and my trainer was going to give me a 12-pound weight. And I said, no, you can have it. I'm not doing it. And she said, well, you want to build. I said, I'm going to build and I'm going to build cautiously. So you go find me a less weight or I'll go find another thing to do. And I made a decision that I was not going to use that extra weight because at this time I'm not ready for that level of 2 12-pound weights. And I said that to say is understanding where we really are versus where, somebody may want to challenge you where they think you can go and giving yourself the grace to do it, and then there are times where, I don't feel like working out. I'm not going to do it. So I'll go take a walk instead. At least I do something. So I've eliminated the excuse of not working out because I don't want to go to the gym. I'll go outside and walk.
That's better than doing nothing. Correct. That's better than doing nothing. And the idea of an excuse doesn't mean you have to be Superwoman or Superman every day of your life. The idea of an excuse is asking a basic question. Am I doing this decision out of love of what I want, or is this out of fear of what I don't want? And that answer tells you whether you're making excuses or whether you're justifying, just don't want to do something, but you come up with an alternative. I hope you get nothing else out of that. Get these 4 steps, do them every day. And then the question is this decision out of love of what I want to have happen or fear of what I don't want to have happen? And you'll know whether you're making excuses or not. So tomorrow morning, I just have 2 more slides left, I believe. Tomorrow morning, before breakfast, you will wake up and you will know the one thing you've been avoiding through excuses. Is it the one phone call you've been saying you should make, or the phone calls you should make? Is it one conversation you know you need to have with someone because they're just on your last nerve, but you held off one health decision. I'm going to be honest with you. Everyone needs to make a health decision. Who do you want to be when you're 10 years from now, 5 years from now? What do you want your body to look like? A financial decision. One of my biggest regrets is I did not take all that financial advice I got when I was younger to heart. So what's your financial decision you want to make? How are you going to start managing your money? One step, one self-imposed limitations. You already know what it is. You just got to go out and do it. And Rebecca, I see your hands up. I just want to finish, get this done. Self-imposed limitations are the most hideous form of excuses because they stop you from even trying, or you quit at step 2. Self-imposed limitations are when you decide you can't do something you've never done before. You decide you did it once, it didn't feel good, you're never going to do it again. If that were true, all of us could walk, because we would fall, bump our big head, start crying, and say we're never going to walk again. So I'm encouraging you, and I say this with love, stop being a baby. Or maybe I should say, become a baby again, and don't let life tell you what you can and can't do. Do what you want to do. Do what makes you, not what makes you feel good, but what makes you successful. Because doing what you feel good, that's another good way to put yourself in a deep, deep hole. Either way, your self-imposed limitations stop you from becoming the person who will create the life you truly want to live. The emphasis is on you stop yourself. Every time you say, I can't do this, without real evidence, you're stopping yourself. You are literally rejecting yourself. And I don't want you to do that anymore. The question isn't whether you know what to do. The question is whether you will obey your own orders. When you hear the voice saying, do this, and you don't do it, you are failing yourself. Nobody has to reject you. You reject yourself. Excuses don't destroy your future all at once. They destroy it one justified decision at a time. And so right now, I give you the choice. Execution, the path to growth in the life you want to live, or excuses, the path to the life you presently have. And I beg you all, choose wisely. Not every decision is that important, but so many of them are. My name is Mark Dulaney. I call myself your personal drill sergeant, not because I give you orders, but because I get you to obey your own orders. And the truth about progress, the future you want, is on the other side of the hard work, the uncomfortable work that your excuses get you to avoid. And I hope you remember that with all present. This is a link to my book, eliminatingexcuses.me. It'll, according to Safa, it'll take you to your own country. And if I guarantee you it'll be a good read, I guarantee you you'll learn more about excuses than you ever thought was meant to be known. And I also have a podcast literally called Excuses, the Cancer Killing Your Future. You can get that at podcast.eliminatingexcuses.com. And that's last thing I have for you is, if I said something today that connected with you, I'd love it if you would share it with me. MarkDulaney.com is my scheduler. If you'd like to talk about an excuse you have or clarification of anything we talked about today, I would love those conversations. So feel free to write that down. Just remember, Dulaney is spelled with a U. MarkDulaney.com. We can talk about what goals you're trying to accomplish, what's been stopping you, a problem you want to solve, or an area of your life that you want to improve. And a principle from my book, I bet, would help you with that. And I'm willing to provide that at no cost, no obligation. So I'd love to have that conversation with you. And there's a character most of you are too young to know. I think it was Elmer Fudd. You should say, "Abadi, abadi, abadi." That's all, folks. That's what I got. Johanna, you had your hand up. I'm sorry, Rebecca, you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just a bit late on the previous question, like what would change if we do that process and we actually change our things. And I think your description of the cancer is so accurate, because I have always felt like I've really been working, I have really executed excuses for years. And actually, one thing is what you get out of it in terms of your health or your finances or whatever. But for me, I find that it's also about breaking free from this prison you put yourself in. So every time you do this process, you just open up your your way of being in the world. So that was just what I wanted to share.
Well, thank you. I hope everyone will take me up on my offer and have a conversation about your excuses and what your experiences is and see if there's a way I can help you. MarkDulaney.com. That's all I got. We got 6 minutes left before we have to end. So if you have any questions, any comments, or otherwise, I'll turn it over to Safar.
I think I asked the same question last time, is how much the environment is responsible for the excuses that you have. Because if you have lousy friends and a lousy partner, I mean, it's easy to find excuses for not going for excellence.
So then the excuse is why do you stay around those people? Because you're comfortable with those people, and other people maybe make you uncomfortable. Your environment, I grew up in a place called Harlem, New York. They make movies about it. It was so poor. I'm a son of a single mom. My natural father was never really in my life. And and it did in some ways, but should that be the reason that I live a miserable life forever? I think the answer is no. Don't we love movies where some impossible person does something amazing and they overcome and they go through peril? I mean, isn't that the essence of every movie? I, they should die, they should this, they should that, but they survive, they overcome. Isn't that the essence of a movie? Well, that could be our lives also if we just be persistent and follow the 4-step procedure I laid out. Does that make sense so far?
I think that's definitely Western movies, right? Because Eastern tradition would be totally different.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a very American kind of script from a movie perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that one of our biggest challenges is not to let the environment define our own emotions. Once we start being in charge of them, we will be getting closer to what Mark says, to 3.0.
And Sapphire, it's recognizing as well that you can allow yourself to outgrow your environment and change it. I've lived in 9 different cities and I've changed environment, and I've done it sometimes with one luggage and $200 in my pocket because I knew it was a necessity, and it was, so I did it. So it doesn't mean you have to change and do what I've done, because Alfredo made a good point, is being able to accept that environment and deal with it and not let it affect you. But you can change it. It's really up to you. Lousy friends can go. Lousy partner can go.
I definitely need to bring on Sharif and Aaron, who live in a very difficult neighborhood in England. And I think they have such a story to share with us about exactly what you said, Mark, Joanna, and Alfredo, about outgrowing your environment. And yeah, they've totally changed from going into really bad bands and like bad habits, drugs, crime, to now being ones to coach other people. And but it takes a hell of a mental sort of breakthrough to actually get there.
Safa, if I may add, this sounds like a beautiful story, but I want to say that for all of us, we are allowed to change our environment, even if it seems beautiful on paper. Because I grew up in Nice, in the south of France, on the water, skiing in the winter with friends and family, amazing food. So, I can say, oh, I left my hometown because it was terrible. It wasn't. It was beautiful. But I outgrew what I needed to find in that environment. And it's not because it's pretty and nice and wonderful that you're not allowed to do that for yourself.
Good point.
I would say that I say there's a lot of spoiled brats who grew up that way, believing they were entitled to it and never worked their butt off to keep it. So it goes both ways. Sorry, Paula, for cutting you off.
That's okay. What I was going to say is, as human beings, we have to grow up and we learn resilience. So whatever environment you grow up in, whether it's a difficult neighborhood, that's not a unusual story. If it's a health problem, or if it's a crazy family, or whatever it is, or if it's the best of everything, the challenge to become the human being you were called to be and the calling on your life is going to require you to step up and mature. So you can wallow in it or you can step out of it. And eliminating the excuses of, I came up in a bad neighborhood, I have to stay here. No. I came up in a great neighborhood and I'll just shop for the rest of my life. No. In order to be resilient and the person of character and the leader that you're called to be, to lead your own family and yourself in your life, resilience comes from challenge. You're going to be challenged. We all have to know how to walk through those challenges and not make excuses in the process. You know, there go my 12-pound weights, which I'm not going to do this week. But I'm just saying, you know, these kind of things, and laugh at this stuff. It's not that deep. It's not that serious. But we're going to walk through life. And I think it's great, Joanna, that you left to find a challenge that provoked your mental capacity and your life. That's wonderful. That's what life is about.
Safar, thank you for the opportunity to present today. All of you, I appreciate your being here. I really do. And so thank you all very much.
Well,
thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for this presentation.
Great session, Mark. Great session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely connect with Mark if you haven't already. He's open for one-on-one calls, and then check out his book. You know, we need to support authors in our community, so feel free to check out his book. Did you put down the links, Mark?
No, I can get them real quick, but I put them on a slide.
On the website, right? It would be on your website, I'm assuming.
I wrote a book. I didn't create a website yet, I'll be honest with you.
All right, so it's markdulaney.com.
So markdulaney.com, the schedule, markdulaney.com, Dulaney with the U.
But
and
your link, the one that takes you directly to the Amazon store, that's the one we
yes,
need.
I'm looking for it. I'm going to copy it in for you.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, sorry. I did add to LinkedIn, yeah. Okay, thank you. Got it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today's session. It was a great discussion. The discussion continues on our WhatsApp group. If you'd like to join, please let me know. I'll happily add you to our little group. It's a very cozy group, so we don't post very much, but it's like it feels like a little family. Louis, I know you won't be able to join. Sorry. All right. Thank you again, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. See you next Wednesday, same time, same link.
Bye. Thank you so much. You can add me to the group.
Okay, I'll do
Thank
that.
you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye.